Hi, welcome back. This is the second part of using things up out of our freezer, and these are the currants that we defrosted last time. I'm going to take you through jamming them from the equipment, through the making and to the storing at the end. So I hope you enjoy it. I showed you weighing out the red currants while they were frozen so that you could work out, if you wanted, the sugar from that point. However, I don't want to take that measurement because I want to take the seeds out of my jam. We have never liked redcurrant jam with the seeds in, but I want as much pulp as possible. I could boil it down and then strain out all of the pulp and make it into a jelly, but I don't want that either. I want some of the fibre in there. So what we're going to do is cook down the berries and make sure that I've got what I need at the end and weigh that and compare it against the sugar. I've got most of the things out that I could think of that I needed. So I've got my pan, happens to be a jamming pan, but you could use whatever. I've got bowls for sterilising lids of the jars. I will sterilise them later and put them in the oven, the jars themselves. I've got lemon juice to help with setting, so I don't use any extra pectin. Obviously the sugar, the fruit, got a jamming funnel to get it into the jars later. I think I might need the narrower neck one though rather than this wide neck one. I've got my jug to help me get it in, my plate for testing of setting, and I'll assemble this later, but I've got my whirligig to help me strain the fruit. So this is not from a particular recipe, I'm just going from the fruit that got out the freezer and trying to get it into a jam. I'm going to do one that will store, but I'll talk about that later. Okay, so we've got all our lovely fruit. We should get it all into the pan. That lovely juice too. And then we're going to turn on the heat. You need to get that warmed up and cooked. So I'm going to put my lemon juice in now. You could measure it out. You're talking in the terms of tablespoons, so if you've got not much fruit, I'd only put the 1 tablespoon in. If you've got lots of fruit, then you probably want 2 tablespoons. I'm just going to give it a couple of squibs. And what we're waiting for now is basically for it to cook through. So that's going to take. Okay, so we have jars here. I've saved all of these from previous items that we've eaten, but what I like to do is save the ones with the poppy tops, so that later on it helps me tell whether it's sealed or not, because each of them have a little seal inside, and that, when exposed to heat, should create our vacuum to help them seal. So I'm going to, even though these have been through the dishwasher, I'm just going to quickly wash them out. And the lids I'm going to put in my glass receptacle, happens to be a glass bowl, and I'll be able to sterilise them separately. These don't really want to go in the oven because, you know, nasties and things. So I just need to get them all in there. I've got 2 different sizes because what I really want to use is these little ones, because I know it won't get used up quite so quickly as some of the more popular jams in the family. but I do need to get the stuff used out the freezer, the crop used up. But I'm a bit worried I might run out of how many I've actually got. So I'm doing some backup ones. It's always worth sterilising more jars than you think you need, because if you get to the end and you want to bottle up your jam and you haven't got the jars, you're in a bit of trouble. So better to have them clean and sterilised and then just put them back in the cupboard than run out. Make sure you're stirring your fruit every so often, because although we want it to cook, I don't want it to burn on the bottom. It's coming up to temperature now. We're starting to get a few bubbles, but it's still got a long way to go, which gives me a great opportunity to get my jars sterilised. So I'm going to go and wash them in the sink and then I'll put them in the oven. Don't want any burning. And it'll keep going like that until it's cooked. So my kettle's coming up to the boil. I like to sterilise with boiling water from the kettle. It just makes it so much simpler. And all I'm going to do is pour the water over what I need to be sterilised. Right, so what I normally do is to save on having to boil the kettle a number of times, is I sterilise my funnel over the lids, both sides, and then I'm putting it onto the plate that I use for testing later, but it's also, we know it's clean. Jug, be very careful because I have burnt myself before doing this. And we need to sterilise everything but the handle because it will be going in the jam. And as for the lids, I just want them to be covered. If some of them are upside down, sometimes they'll catch air. Just give them a shake. And then we'll just leave them in there for a little while and they will sterilise while they're waiting for us. I'll drain them later. Checking the red currants, giving them a bit of a squish against the side. I would say a minimum of 20 minutes to get them to soften. I think we're not far off now. I'll just give them a few more minutes. As I say, test them against the side. If they're squishing nicely, then it follows that they're about done. As I said, I'm going to strain mine because I don't like the seeds, and neither do my family, out of the red currants. Funny though, because the black currants from the allotment, nobody minds. Don't know why that is. Do the seeds soften when they cook in the black currants? I don't know. Do they not soften in the red currants as they cook? I don't know. Does anybody else know? So I'm going to put my bowl there, and then I need to construct this. So there are a lot of sieves out there, and I did buy a cheap one to start off with. I regretted it. It was hard work, didn't like it, it was difficult to clean, didn't do the job properly. This one, however, I have really enjoyed. It's made me want to use it more and more. It's got these funky feet, so it doesn't matter what size your bowl is, it'll sit on it. So I've got the strainer in. I've picked the smallest one, but there are 3 different sizes that come with it. and then this is the whirligig. This is what pushes the fruit through. So I just need to make sure I'm getting it locked into the right places. The hole goes in the middle, latch there, and then there's this button here that helps me lock it on the other side. There we go, all in place. And my cheap one, to get it off, it almost hurt every time to get it off, whereas this is very simple. And all we'll do in a bit is wind the handle. Right, I think we're going to say that's go, and I'm going to turn the heat off. Now I've got to try and get my jamming mixture into this, but of course it's extremely hot, so we need to be very careful. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my jug again to help me ladle it across. Okay, so all we need to do is keep winding, and it all starts to come through out the bottom and into the bowl. Always good to do a reverse action every few winds. It seems to clear it of any of the pulp that's not going to go through, or the seeds. Just gives it that extra bit of speed getting it through. And basically you just keep going until it's done. Don't know how long we've been, but it only feels like a few minutes, and I'm about at the end. I'll show you in a minute what the pulp looks like that's left. Here's the pulp. You can see how thick it is and how it's mostly seeds. I mean, I could be a bit finicky and keep going if I wanted to, but I think I've got enough now. Now stop. Underneath you can see that it's way more than just juice. So the next thing you need to do is just get all the goodness off the bottom of the sieve, because it will be there and you don't want to waste it. So I've got the pan back on the stove. However, I've not completely washed it, I've just rinsed it out. And the reason I wanted to rinse it out was to get rid of any extra seeds that are left in there, otherwise they will end up in my final jam. The other thing that we need to do is get the pulp weighed. However, we didn't weigh the pulp beforehand, so we'll have to weigh it after. And then we can subtract it. Okay. So we've got over 2 kilograms, 2179. So let's get that into the pan. 860. Bit of maths there then. So I'm not interested in it being completely right. It's not gram for gram. It won't make that much difference as long as you're round about 1,300. So a kilogram, 300 grams of sugar, because that's how we're going to work it out. Most of the jams I tend to make are a 50-50 because I need the sugar as the preservative along with the heat and the vacuum to make it last. So I need to get the sugar measured out next. So I know, because it actually says on the package it's a kilogram, so that's our kilogram, so we need 300 grams to go with it. But just out of interest afterwards, I'm going to check it. There we go. I am just using regular sugar. I put lemon juice in for the pectin. You can buy jamming sugar, but I tend to find it's quite expensive for what it is, and I'd rather just use the regular sugar. Okay, so that's our 300 grams. That can go in. Get the heat back on as well. And we were going to check whether this actually was a kilogram, weren't we? Oh, it's not bad. I'd probably say the 20 grams that it is over, because it is over a kilogram, it's probably the bag. Shall we have a go? See what happens. Oh, apparently the bag is nearly 10 grams. So we've got an extra 10 grams in there. Again, won't matter. So the sugar's in now, and we want it to dissolve. We don't want the liquid to boil straight away. I want to get the sugar all dissolved first. So make sure the heat's not too high so you can get it dissolved. Tend to see if it's dissolved by just turning my spoon over and seeing if I can see any granules of sugar on it, which I still can at the minute. So I'll just keep heating it a little bit more. As soon as the sugar granules have gone, it means I can bring it to the boil and start making it into jam. And of course all this time our jar's been sterilising in the oven. So the only thing that's on the back of the spoon now are bubbles. And we've got no lumps because we took the seeds out. So now we need to bring it to the boil. While that's coming to the boil, I might as well drain my lids, then they have a chance of drying out. Okay, so they're all drained now. Just let them dry out as much as possible. Just starting to bubble. bit closer to the rapid boil. The foam that forms around the edges, we can scoop that off later. I know that a lot of people throw it away, but I tend to save it in a ramekin and just pop it on a slice of toast or something later. It doesn't look very pretty, but it still tastes delicious. Right, I would say that we have come to our rapid boil now. So I would estimate that in about 20 minutes we can do our first test and see if it's at setting point, which is what I need for it to turn into jam. Now I'm going to stir it now and again so that it doesn't stick. The thinner your pan, probably the more you're going to have to stir it. So we're at the 20-minute mark now, so I'm starting to think that we're ready to test. Just going to turn the heat down a bit because I don't want it to squat me. Just drip some of the jam onto the plate, and then I need to let it cool down a bit, so sometimes blow on it. Now what we're looking for, if it's ready, is it should wrinkle when I push my finger into it. You can see it's starting to form there. It still feels very hot. I think it's about done. I also notice if I tip it, it's not really running, so that's a good sign. Have another go. Oh yeah, oh look. Yes, definitely. Next job is to get some of the jars out of the oven. Now obviously they are really, really hot, so I need to be careful. And I'm only going to get about 3 out at a time, so that the others will remain nice and hot. And you saw me use this earlier to decant. I have re-sterilised it. So the idea is to get it into the jar without making a mess, which sounds really easy until you actually start to do it, and then you go, actually this is quite tricky. I always make a mess. Okay, so move it into the jar. And I want to fill it, not right to the brim, but not that far below, because then the heat from the jam will seal the top onto it. Okay, so carefully get it off. Now then, if I just move it apart a bit, really hot. You can just see there, I've got some jam on the rim. Don't want that. So, need a bit of vinegar. Just a bit of white vinegar on my cloth, so if you make a mess, that's what you need, a bit of white vinegar. Get that rim clear. Otherwise your lid is going to have a job to seal to that. Okay, then I need a lid. Give it a shake to make sure there's minimal water on it, preferably none. Hold the jar tightly, definitely with a cloth, because if I'm holding it tightly, I want to make sure it's not going to burn me. Right, tighten that as far as I can, and then set it aside. There we go. Beautiful ramekin that can leave in the fridge, and we'll just finish it up over the next couple of days. So hopefully now these will cool down and the little poppers will pop down. I'll actually hear them click if they seal. If not, they're going to be on the list of eating up a bit quicker as well. But if they do, then I have got something that I can just put on the shelf and use at our leisure, and I'll label them up later. Just some washing up to do now. A few bits that I'll hand wash, but a lot of it will just go in the dishwasher. One of the lids has popped. I'm hoping to catch another one popping, but we'll see. If you could like and subscribe, that would help me loads, thanks. And thank you for watching today. I really enjoyed it.